Good morning, everyone. It is Saturday, April the 3rd, 2021. It is currently 11:48 a.m. Central Time. And once again, I'm coming to you live from Victory Baptist Church, located right here in the middle of nowhere, Texas. I hope you're having a wonderful day or afternoon, morning, evening, nighttime. I don't know when you're going to hear this, but whenever you hear this, however you may hear this, thank you for listening. We greatly appreciate it. Obviously, if you're listening to me live this Saturday morning or whatever time it is where you may be listening to me from, feel free to use the little chat feature there on the Spreaker app to say good morning, good evening, hello. If you have any questions, any thoughts, anything, feel free to jump in and I will do my best to respond as I can. I'm here, and what we're going to do, I guess what I'm going to do is I think what I'm going to try to do here is create what I tend to call a Bible study exercise. For those who are new, the Bible study exercises is where I do part of the teaching, and then I try to guide you up to a certain point and say, there you go look this up, investigate this, investigate that, investigate this. And then, as always, I tell you, beg you, plead with you, send me your work. You can email it to me at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com, because what you find, what you discover, the conclusions you come to, they not only are they hopefully beneficial to you in the process of gaining that knowledge by sending it to me, then it can challenge me to go, wait, I wasn't even thinking that. Wait, they went in a completely different direction than I thought they were going to go. Wait, that's not the answer I wanted them to find. That's not the conclusion I wanted. How did they get there? And then it may lead me to go back and reconsider the passage. So you're actually, you move from student to teacher in a sense, because you sending me what you discover is in a sense teaching me and helping me. So please, as always, feel free to send your work to me at newsif@yahoo.com. I like to see that people are not just being passive listeners, but active students. That's what I want to accomplish here. Now, we've been doing some Bible study exercises. I don't know if you've kind of caught on that there's kind of a theme emerging here. It really wasn't, I don't know if it was really my goal, but kind of a theme has emerged. Let me go back. Let me try to put this all in its proper context. When was the first one? The first one really happened back on March the 21st, 2021, where we did a Bible study exercise called I Can Do All Things. And there we kind of, we focus on that passage in Philippians 4, but we dealt with a lot of issues, but that was really the first one that was kind of setting this up. Now, what we should have focused on that one is the idea of being content, of contentment. That in the Christian life, you need contentment. So I'm going to have to go back and re-listen to that, because we may need to redo that to add to this. But Philippians 4:13 is kind of where everything started. Again, I think my original goal was to really focus on contentment, but we started focusing on a number of other issues there. But there was a Bible study exercise, all right? Then we jumped to, on March the 24th, I did a Bible study exercise on patience. On patience. So just stay with me here. As a Christian, now listen to me carefully. As a Christian, one of the things that I have discussed about over and over and over and over and over, and I've discussed this, talked about it over and over and over again, is that as a Christian, you need to understand the concept of balance. That so many problems in our Christian life is because of an imbalance. We are unbalanced in so many areas. We go to one extreme to another extreme. We focus on this while we ignore that. We ignore that while we focus on that. And this, a lack of balance in one's spiritual life leads to lots of problems. So a lot of these little Bible study exercises, I started kind of developing this idea of what is needed for a balanced Christian life. So you may want to write this down. You need contentment. A lack of contentment is going to throw your Christian life off balance, and you're going to end up in all kinds of problems, all right? So you need contentment. Second, you need patience, long-suffering, the ability to wait. You're going to need that in your Christian life. But while you are content, while you are waiting, guess what else you need in your Christian life? And we talked about this on March the 28th. You need work. There is a work that must be done. There is a work that needs to be done. All right, so we did a Bible study exercise on work. That was March the 28th. We could have done more, trust me. And then, see, we interrupted that kind of line of reasoning. And then I did a special Bible study exercise on the mark of the beast. Members of Victory Baptist Church, you were supposed to send me your work. I'm still waiting for your work. I still want to see it. Or you can post it in the Slack channel. So there's that. Now, today, we're going to come to another one. And this one really then flows out. This one is very important for a lot of reasons. We started bringing up this subject when we talked about Lectio Divina, and we talked about trying to do Lectio Divina on 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 8, which is a chapter all about love. So we kind of introduced this idea. But in your Christian life, yes, you need work. Yes, you need patience. Yes, you need contentment. But in your Christian life, this concept of love must be at the very forefront, must be evident in your life, must be a major thing that you are trying to understand, you're pursuing, and you're trying to demonstrate. Because obviously the concept of love is throughout the Bible, clearly emphasized frequently in the New Testament, clearly extremely emphasized in 1 Corinthians 13. Basically, 1 Corinthians 13 says love is so important that without it, we basically become absolutely nothing. Love is so very important, but we need a biblical understanding of love, which we talked about a little bit yesterday. In my concluding remarks about Good Friday, I talked about love there again. So this is really starting to become a theme as of late. And sometimes that happens when we're doing these Bible study exercises and podcasting. A certain idea begins to kind of emerge, and then I kind of just, okay, where is that taking me? And I kind of just follow it wherever it may go. So you definitely want to just, if you listen to everything that I have done recently, then you're caught up. If you've missed a lot of things, then maybe I would challenge you to go back and at least listen to the last study I did yesterday on the subject of Good Friday. In fact, what did I call that? I think it was a Bible study exercise. Was it a Bible study exercise? I don't think I called it a Bible study exercise. It was kind of designed as one. Good Friday, humility, love, and suffering. Good Friday, humility, love, and suffering. Now, and there's the idea of love showing up again. So I would definitely go back and listen to that because I made a lot of important concepts there, spoke a lot about love. I kind of gave a definition of love, or kind of I won't say a definition of love. I don't know if it would be an exact way to call it a definition, but kind of an explanation of what biblical love is. And I refer to that biblical love is the altar in which you sacrifice yourself for other people. That love is about other people. It's not about you. You don't love in order to get. We love because we want. So many times we seek love because we want something. We need something. We desire something. It's about what we can get. That's the reason we need relationships. Well, I need relationships so that I can love people. Yeah, you're loving people. You're telling me that you're loving people, but you're really loving people simply because you have a need, because you desire something, you need something. You're loving people because to fulfill something you need. That's not love. Biblical love is, no, you sacrifice yourself for other people's benefit to give them what they need. But so many times people are like, oh, you need to love people. You need to love people. Yeah, and you need to love people because you have a lot of needs in your life and you're using other people for your need while you're patting yourself on the back saying that you love people. You simply love people because you can't be alone, or you need friends and you need companionship and you need this and you need. It's all about your neediness. And then you cover your neediness by claiming that you're loving people. All right. Yeah, that's a whole separate topic. But I think the Bible clearly demonstrates love is not being about us. It's being about someone else. Loving God. It's not about what we can get. We love God because of who God is. We could go all day on this direction. So I want to just continue this concept. And this time I want to look at love based off a passage in the Gospel of John. All right. Now, a lot of times with a Bible study exercise like this, I could give you a million things to do, but there's a concept here that I'm still trying to to wrap my mind around. And I think maybe we've misinterpreted this, but you can tell me what you think. All right. John chapter 15. John chapter 15. And if you look at John chapter 15, this is very important, I think, for context. If you look at John 15, 1 and following, we get this idea of abiding in Christ. Abide in me, I in you, this idea of abiding. Keep that in mind, all right? So we have the abiding concept, and then this leads down to this, all right? Verse 9, John 15, 9. As the Father hath loved me, so have I loved you. Continue ye in my love. All right. That's where we're going. I don't know if we're going to get any further today, but I want us to really think about this. In fact, I don't think I'm going to try to expand this. I really want you to meditate on this verse. I've been trying to do a lot of talking with you about the need for developing intimacy with God, trying to go deeper with Scripture than just getting the academic answers so that we can be theologically smarter, and which leads to arrogance, but to really, really, really focus on the Scripture, that the Scriptures have to move from an understanding to an incarnation. The Latin idea of incarnatio, used in Lectio Divina, where it's got to move from the page, from the mind to the flesh. It's got to be fleshed out in action. So what is Jesus saying here? He's telling his disciples, the Father has loved me, right? The Son is loved by the Father, right? So this is the idea that the one God, three distinct persons. This shows the distinction between the Father and the Son and their persons, one God. Okay, we can get a whole discussion here, all right? So the Father has loved me, and then Jesus, so I have loved you. So the Father has loved me, and I have loved you. So the Father loves the Son has loved, and in this particular case, the disciples, right? I think it would be fair to say has loved us. And then he has very specific words here. Continue ye in my love. What does it mean to continue in his love? What do you think that means? Well, first, let's just look up this passage and see how all the English translations deal with it, all right? Let's do that. It's now afternoon. Let's do that on this Saturday afternoon. Let's see how the English translations handle this, all right? Give me 1 second. Let's go to John, the Gospel of John, chapter 15, verse 9. I think I've already looked this up once. Here we go. Here's the English translations, all right? New International Version. As the Father hath loved me, so I have loved you. Now remain in my love. New Living Translation. I have loved you, even as the Father has loved me. Remain in my love. English Standard Version. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Abide in my love. So we get, these are the words, the way we get this. Continue in my love, abide in my love, remain in my love. Those are the different ways the English translations handle this. Continue in my love, remain in my love, abide in my love. Now, the abiding makes sense in the context because he's just been talking about abiding in me and I abide in you. So the abiding really fits the context. But remain in my love, abide in my love, continue in my love. What does this mean? How should we understand this? Well, let me pull up a commentary here because I think this is interesting. Here's one commentary. Continue ye in my love. Better, abide ye in my love. And I understand why they think that's a better translation because of the context. The abiding concept precedes this. And then he reminds them, the Father has loved me, I have loved you. Continue in my love or abide in my love. Now listen, the word continue misses the connection with the context. That's interesting. They said the word continue misses the connection with the context. I don't know if the word continue misses the connection with the context. I think the word continue can give us a wrong impression. I think we just have to understand the word continue in light of the context. Does that make, I don't think the word misses the point. I think we're not careful, it can give us a different idea. So here we go. By my love is meant not love to me in your hearts, but my love towards you. So when it says continue ye in my love, it's not like, hey, continue in my love for me or continue in my love for others, but it is, the focus here is, but not love to me in your hearts, but my love towards you. Continue and or abide in my love that I have for you. Abide in the love that Christ has for you. How do we abide in the love he has for us? How do we abide in that? See, it's easy to read that. So I think sometimes we take it, I need to continue in his love by loving him, or I need to continue in his love by loving others. The emphasis here seems to be abiding in his love he has towards us, continuing in the love he has for us, remaining in the love he has for us. Now, listen, the one produces the other. We love him because he hath first loved us. But that which is prominent is the thought here is his love to the disciples, which he has just compared to the Father's love to himself. So he's saying that one produces the other. I continue in his love for me, which should lead me to loving him. Follow this. If I abide in his love towards me, should produce a love for him, but I will argue that it should produce a love for others. That if I'm going to love God properly, if I'm going to love others properly, I have to abide in his love towards me. If I abide in his love towards me, then that produces the other. That is a very interesting concept that we will have to explore in greater detail in a minute. Another translation says, abide in his love. This is obviously a more explicit and more intelligible form of the commandment to abide in him. The love that is mine is not the love to Christ, nor the love of Christ, but a blending of the active and passive idea and the love that is mine, and the love lavished upon me from eternity, and to you which I have eternally responded, which I have made known to you and expanded on you, and received back again from you. Abide in the love that is mine. So they carry the same idea. They do a lot of verbiage there, but the basic idea is I need to abide in his love. So here's the question. And I think it's interesting. A lot of times we try to figure out, what does it mean to abide in him? What does it mean to abide in him? And we did a lot of discussion, and I asked a lot of questions. We did a long kind of mini series on this. We didn't really bring it to an ultimate conclusion because I wanted to challenge people on the concept, because there's so many books out there that give this kind of very mystical idea of what this means. If this is the conclusion of that discussion, this may actually clarify what it means. To abide in him, I am to abide in his love towards me. Now, how do I do that? What does that look like? How does that continue? Now, there's other commentaries here, but none of them really articulate what it looks like. Let me see here. I'm looking at another commentary here. All right. Yeah. There's a possible answer here that I think the text is going to give us, that some of these commentaries are now mentioning. Some of them don't really do a very good job of explaining this to me. Some tell us the reason we should stay in this love. Some say continue ye in my love, not continue to love me. So this is not about us loving him. Continue in the possession and enjoyment of my love to you, as is evident from the next words. Okay, we're not going to read the next verse yet. That's okay. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to ponder on this idea. of continuing in God's love. I want you to ponder on this idea. We're going to read the next verses in a minute because I think it gives an answer. One commentary hints at this. Most of the commentaries don't really try to explain this, but I think we need to spend some time meditating on this. You are to continue and abide in God's love. That abiding in his love produces a love for him and a love for others. I think both is true. So what produces my love for God, what produces my love for others is abiding in his love for me. So that makes it critical. But how do I do this? Well, I think one is a constant, I'm just going to throw out an idea. I think number one is we need to be constantly reminded of God's love towards us, that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. We've got to constantly remind ourselves of what God did for us, his love for us. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. Yesterday, Good Friday, is the day that we remember God's love for us by sending his Son, and we see the love of the Son in a sense of him giving up. He sacrificed himself for us. He gave up the use of the divine attributes. And we talked about this in breaking down a lot of the theology of Good Friday. In his conception, by being placed in the womb, here's the eternal Son of God inside the womb of a woman. That's giving up some of those divine attributes. He's a baby. He does all of this. He sacrifices himself for us. That is love. We need to be reminded of that love every single day, of God's love for us. Nothing can separate us from God's love. That even my failure cannot separate me from God's love. Even my sin, because his love, he sacrificed himself to overcome even my own failings and my own weakness and my own sin to save me, redeem me, and adopt me into his family. I think the one way I remain in that love is a constant reminder of that love. The way I abide in that love is I got to constantly remind myself of it. Sometimes I think we treat God almost in almost in a contractual way, like almost in this sense that, okay, God is going to do this for me. I must do this for him. If I do this for him, then he does this for me. Almost like we've entered into kind of a business agreement. But we got to remember that God loved me from all eternity and that he saved me without nothing doing with me. He saved me because of his great love. He redeemed me because of his great love. Apart from me, in spite of me. And we've got to be reminded of that love and really see the love towards us. I think we immediately, I think at the beginning of our salvation, we understand God's love for us. And then we spend all of our time focusing on now what he tells us to do, my failure, sin, and we sometimes can forget God's love. All right. So we've got to continue. I think the first way is we have to remind ourselves of it. I think that's very important. And I'm going to throw out a second thought here. So I continue in God's love by constantly reminding me of it. Now, this one may be a little hard to explain, but let me see if you agree with this. I continue in God's love by not allowing my failure to make me flee from him, but I use my failure as an opportunity to flee to him. Sometimes when we sin, we almost want to run from him. We want to hide from him. Or like, I'm done. I've failed too many times. But if we are going to abide in his love, failure, sin, makes us run back to him. My failure should bring me back into his love because it reminds me that without his love, I am nothing. He loved me. It doesn't mean that I excuse my sin, but my sin should drive me back to him. My failure should drive me back to him because nothing can separate me from the love of God, even my own sin, and his love and his grace and mercy is greater than my sin. So I should remind myself of it and I should flee to it when I sin. Failure should be the thing that causes me to flee to it, not flee from it. So much, we like to hide from God when we sin. We like to run from God. We need to flee to God, no matter how big the sin is, no matter how small, quote unquote, the sin is. Right? Those are two ideas. But let's go back to the text and see what the text tells us to do here. And this one becomes a little bit maybe more problematic. Let's look at it. Here we go. As the Father hath loved me, so have I loved you. Continue ye in my love. Now here's verse 10. If you keep my commandments, you shall abide in my love, even as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. Oh boy. All right, now, how do we abide in his love? Reminding ourselves from it. Fleeing to God's love, allowing our failure to cause us to flee to it. But there's a third option here, or a third idea here, that I think is we have to struggle with this. I abide in his love by obeying his commandments. I abide in his love by obeying his commandments. Now, we got to be very careful here because we're all going to fall short of his commandments. We're never going to fulfill them completely. That's just 100% true. But what does obedience have to do with abiding in love? That's what I want you to work on. What is the role of obedience when it comes to abiding in love? I want you to really think about this. I don't even know if I'm going to give you an answer. I don't even know if I'm going to give you an answer here. Abiding in love. In fact, let me just read it to you again. I'm going to go back to it. I closed my Bible. I'm going to read it to you again. All right. I really want you to think these through. All right. As the Father hath loved me, so I have loved you. Continue ye in my love. You are called to continue in God's love. I think you can continue by reminding yourself of it, by fleeing to it. That failure should cause you to flee to it. You're going to fail. So somehow that failure has to be a part of it. But there's a third aspect that you keep you abide in his love by keeping his commandments. Keeping his commandments, obedience to his commandments is connected with abiding in love. How does that work? How does obedience connect to abiding in his love? I know that was a long pause there. I'm sorry. That was a dramatic pause, partially to get you thinking, but I was sitting there thinking myself exactly what is the connection here? What is the connection here? If I keep your commandments, I am abiding in your love. Now, I'm not going to do it perfectly. That's why I think we have to have number 2, because my failure's got to run me right back to it. But I think love for God should involve, now this is, we got to be very careful here. Because if we're not careful, we're going to destroy this. We're going to destroy the idea here. We're going to make this verse say something it doesn't. So I'm trying to be very careful here. Let me explain. If this is about continuing in his love, in other words, this is not about me continuing in my love for him, but I'm continuing in his love for me. All right. Now I got to be very careful because this point about obeying him, I'm going to state it this way. Well, I demonstrate my love for him by obeying him, right? But here's the problem. That makes it about my love for him, right? Which destroys the whole concept. So let me see if I can, let's see if I can draw this out and see if this makes any sense. All right. The Father loves the Son loves us. We are called to continue in his love. How do we continue in his love? I think we do so by reminding ourselves of it on a regular and consistent basis. Because if we don't do that, we're in trouble, right? So, and by continuing that love, we'll develop a love for God and a love for others. It will. I think God's love for me is the thing that produces love for him and produces love. We love him because he first loved us. This is very critical. All right, but so stay with me. So how do I stay in his love, abide in his love? By reminding myself of it. Second, by allowing my failure to cause me to flee to him, flee to his love, not flee from it. And then number 3, by keeping his commandments. Now let me stay with me here. Disobedience breaks fellowship, not salvation, but breaks fellowship. Disobedience destroys intimacy. Disobedience destroys intimacy. Whenever we disobey God, rebel against God, our salvation is eternally secure. And the reason our salvation has to be eternally secure is because it has nothing to do with us. It has something to do with the finished work of Christ. The imputed righteousness of Christ cannot in any way, shape, or form be taken away because it was imputed by him. I can't do anything to cause it to be removed because he gave it to me. He paid for all of my sins. My salvation is completely secure in him. But my disobedience breaks that fellowship and that intimacy. And once that intimacy is broken, I'm no longer abiding in that love. I'm abiding in a fractured relationship, not in a from a salvation way, but from a fellowship way, from an intimacy way. Disobedience with God fractures intimacy with God. So if I'm going to abide in his love, I have to seek to obey his word. Let's see where this text goes here, right? John 15:9, as the Father hath loved me, so have I loved you. Continue ye in my love. If you keep my commandments, you shall abide in my love, even as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. These things have I spoken unto you, that my joy might, and I got to turn the page, might remain in you, and that your joy might be full. Now stop right there. Now please note, he's spoken these things that we can have joy. That joy flows from abiding in his love. Abiding in his love produces this joy because abiding in his love produces a fellowship and intimacy. So if I don't obey his commandments and seek to obey them and follow his commandments, that fractures that intimacy, which fractures that joy, which fractures me abiding in that love. He still loves me, but the intimacy of that love is fractured by that disobedience. My position is eternally secure, but my practical relationship and intimacy with God is greatly determined by my obedience, which that lack of obedience fractures that love, which then can take away that joy. So how do you abide? How do you continue in God's love? By reminding yourself of it, by fleeing to it when you fail, but by seeking to obey his commandments. By seeking to obey his commandments. Now, please note, so this abiding in his love, abiding in him, is the idea that his joy might remain in you, and that your joy might be full. That if we want to have full joy, if you truly want to have full joy, real lasting joy, you have to abide in him. You have to abide in his love. Once that love is fractured, that intimacy, then the joy is removed. The joy is removed. You cannot have biblical joy if you're not remaining, abiding, continuing in his love towards you. How do you continue his love? By reminding yourself of it frequently, by fleeing to it when you fail, and by seeking to obey his word. If you're not seeking to obey his word, that relationship is going to be fractured because God is holy. Now, how do you get back? When you haven't obeyed, you flee back to him for repentance and forgiveness. Now, from that, this is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Now stop right here. Now, here's what I want you to do. I've already done part of the work for you. I've kind of answered what is the connection between abiding in God's love and obedience to his command. I kind of did that for you. But here's now what I want you to really flesh out today. What is the connection between abiding in God's love and you loving other people? What is the connection between loving God and you loving other people? Now, I already told you that I believe there's a circular idea here. God loved us. I continue in that love. That love produces a love for God and a love for others. But I really want you to think about this. How abiding in God's love, how is that directly correlated to you loving other people? I don't think you can love other people unless you remain in God's love. I don't think you can. Because to love other people, you got to love them. This is to love them with a godlike love. And a godlike love is a love that sacrifices for others. Christ sacrificed himself for others. While we were yet sinners, he died for us. That is a godlike love. Love is the altar which we sacrifice ourselves. So the only way I can love others is I need to know that kind of love. And the only way I can know that kind of love is by remaining in God's love. All right. So I'm giving it away again. I do bad in these Bible study exercises because I want to do all of the teaching. But I want you to really just try to flesh that out today. What is the connection between abiding in God's love, continuing in God's love, and you loving other people? I want you to really flesh that out and then ask yourself a very, very serious question. Is your true lack of biblical love for other people, and don't tell me that you have a biblical love for other people, because I bet you fall so short of it, it's not even funny. How is your lack of biblical love completely connected to the fact that you're not abiding in the love of God? The only way you can truly love is you have to abide in God's love. How are these connected? I really want you to flesh this out and think about this, meditate on it. I know I'm not giving you like scriptures to look up. I just want you to sit there and meditate on this today. Okay. God, the Father loves the Son loves us. I am to abide in that love. How am I to abide in that love? By reminding myself of it frequently, by fleeing to it when I fail, and by obeying his commands. I am commanded to love other people. How is loving other people connected to abiding in God's love? And is my failure to love other people a direct reflection as evidence that I'm not truly abiding in God's love? I want you to think about that today. Meditate on that today. Flesh that out. I know I like to usually be very specific and say, look this up, look this up, look this up. But here's a very just biblical concept that I just want to lay before you and then see what you do with it. Now, listen, if we're going to have a balanced Christian life, oh yes, we need contentment. Oh, yes, we need patience. Oh, yes, we need to work. But we've got to we've got to abide in God's love. If you want a balanced Christian life, you must abide in God's love. Are you abiding in his love today? And how is that connected with a command for you to love other people? All right, I'll stop right there. You can email me your thoughts, your whatever you do with this, let me know by emailing me at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. That's newsif@yahoo.com. I think that will conclude my Saturday live broadcast, and I'm going to head home, get some food, and then, we'll be here tomorrow. I don't know how tomorrow's going to work out. I won't be here early Sunday morning. I'll probably just be here for the 10 a.m. Sunday school, 11 a.m. Morning worship, and then I don't know what Sunday afternoon will look like. If possible, I'll be back as early as I can be Sunday afternoon. Do as much live broadcasting all the way up to Sunday evening at 6 p.m. And then Wednesday, I won't be here Tuesday. My wife, I will not be here Tuesday. So I won't be here Tuesday. I'll probably try to come out here Monday to make up for Tuesday. And then I don't know how Wednesday will go. We'll have to wait and see how Wednesday is going to work out. All right. So there, a lot going on. There's kind of an idea of what's happening. As always, email me anything you want me to cover or talk about or discuss, and I'll be more than happy to make that a priority. All right. Everyone have a great day. Be careful. Be safe. God bless.